Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this video. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is the latest installment in my horror movie superlative series. I am collaborating with my good friend Carlin. What we do is we pick out some horror movie superlatives for all the horror movies released in a certain year. Right now we're in the middle of the 70s, and today we're discussing 1973. So I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and do that for both of our channels. Carlin puts out a lot of great in-depth movie reviews every week, and I have my Nails in a Coffin series, which come out every Friday. It's a lot of fun, and I'll have a link to some of those videos up there as well. So after you watch this video, please go to Carlin's channel and watch his video with the same title as this one. I'll have a link in the description. And then go to the community tab on his page, and we need people to vote on who they thought had the better picks. Whether those picks most closely resembled your own, or whoever had the better justifications. It's up to you. Just watch both videos first, and then please vote on the community tab. It's friendly competition between Carl and I, and we're having a lot of fun. Also, let me know in the comments down below on what your horror movie superlatives pick would be as well. I love reading what you guys choose, and I love learning about movies I haven't seen before. So this is a lot of fun, so hope you guys consider doing that. I really appreciate it. So that looks like I wrapped things up pretty well for now. So let's get down to business and let's pick out some horror movie superlatives for 1973. And for my most amazing horror movie to come out in 1973, The Exorcist, William Friedkin's iconic movie. I love this movie, and I know horror is all subjective, but I love this movie. I know it's really popular with a lot of people. I was lucky enough to see this movie in a theater over 20 years ago when they showed it in theaters for a special event, and it was great. I watched this movie as a kid, way too young at the time, and it scared the crap out of me. I really can't say it's the scariest movie of all time, but using my time machine, going back to 1973, I can definitely see how this movie scared the hell out of a lot of people. Reagan is one of the creepiest kids in the history of horror. I would put her right behind Damien from The Omen. But you know this movie, so there's really no reason for me to tell you all about it. But the movie has many iconic scenes. You got the head spinning around, the vomiting of pea soup. You got the crucifix scene, as well as many others. You know, this movie has a legacy for a reason because it really is well done. But just don't, watch it with today's standards. Put yourself in the position of watching this back in 1973 and see how terrifying it would be for audiences back then. So, yeah, The Exorcist definitely is my most amazing selection for the horror movies that came out in 1973. And for my so bad it's good selection, I'm going with a great creature feature. If you suffer from photophobia, you will not like this movie. The plot revolves around a herpetologist, Dr. Stoner, who hires an assistant, David Blake, who is played by Dirk Benedict, who was Face on the A-Team. The doctor gives David a course of injections as a safeguard after David was bitten by a snake. However, with these injections, David's skin slowly starts to change and peel like a snake. He's getting scales. So, yeah, you guessed it, he's mutating into a snake. And the effects are pretty darn good in this movie. And if you like creature features, I really do think you'll enjoy this movie. When I first saw the poster for this movie years ago, I was like, you know what? I have to check that movie out. You know, it's not a great movie, but it surely is a so bad it's good movie. It is silly. The premise is pretty out there. And watching David change from human into that snake-type creature is pretty unsettling, the closer you get towards the end. Lots of snakes in this movie, so if you like that, you're really gonna dig this movie. Not the best movie by far, but it surely is. It's so bad it's good movie for 1973. For my most WTF movie, this was an easy selection for me. The Baby. Oh boy. This movie is overflowing with WTF. And I really want to show any of it to you since you have to really see it for yourself if you haven't seen this movie. And if you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The movie's about a social worker who investigates a family, which includes Baby, a 21-year-old man who acts, well, like a baby. And I really don't want to give anything away because this movie really needs to be watched. And if you like WTF movies, this movie is 100% WTF. David Mooney, who plays Baby, does an amazing job. And there's not a lot of horror per se in this movie, but it surely is unsettling. There are scenes with the babysitter and Baby's sister that make you say out loud, WTF. And the crazy thing is, this movie was rated PG. And when I first watched this movie and I saw the ending, my reaction was pretty much, and that's just the effect this movie has on you. I have to recommend this movie. It's totally worth a watch. If you like WTF movies, you're going to love The Babe because it's my WTF selection for 1973. For Best Gore, I selected Theater of Blood. Stars Vincent Price, and the movie's about a Shakespearean actor who takes revenge on the critics who denied him the recognition he feels he deserves. You know, this Best Gore category is difficult to nail down since there's not a lot of gore in horror movies in the early 70s. And I think that really took off towards the end of the 70s and really flourished in the 80s. However, this movie is pretty gory for its time. You do have hearts ripped out, stabbings, a body dragged by a horse, even a decapitation. Plus, it stars the legendary Vincent Price, which is worth the price of admission alone. I love the small touches in this film, like when Vincent Price is sawing a man's head off, and he has his nurse assistant kind of wipe the sweat from his brow. And I think with the right actor, you can elevate the gore in a film, and Vincent Price makes this an excellent choice for Best Gore. And yeah, so based on all the movies I've watched for 1973, Theater of Blood is the movie that stood out to me having the best gore. For my most unique selection, I went with Vault of Horror. It's not the first horror anthology movie. It's not the first horror anthology movie I've picked on these horror movie superlatives. But it's the one that stood out to me for 1973. And there were no other horror anthologies that came out that year that I've watched. But this is definitely a solid movie from the 70s. It has 5 stories based off of old EC comics. You've got Midnight Mess, The Neat Job, This Trick Will Kill You, A Bargain in Death, and Drawn and Quartered. My favorite story is The Neat Job, but all of them are totally worth a watch. Nowadays horror anthologies are fairly common, but back in the early 70s, there really weren't a lot of them, and the story really, it holds them together extremely well. When you see horror anthologies now, and then you see these early ones from the 70s, you can kind of see how they influenced current horror anthology movies with wraparound stories and stuff, and I love how it was based off of old EC comics, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt stories. Because those comic books were excellent, and these stories pretty much still hold up, and I think it's unique. So I selected Vault of Horror for my most unique film to come out in 1973. And now for my most overrated selection, and this one may ruffle some feathers, but I had to select George Romero's The Crazies. Not that I don't like the movie, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, I just think it's a little overrated. As I mentioned, it was directed by the legendary George Romero, and it's about the residents of a small town that accidentally become affected by a military biological weapon. And they did remake this movie in 2010. The original is okay. I just think George Romero has a lot of better movies under his belt, and it feels a little derivative of his previous works. Like he was trying to make a zombie movie without really changing, that much. And I know the movie has a following. I just do think it's a little slow and boring. And the characters, for me, felt a little stereotypical, cliche characters for the movies. At that time, no one really stood out to me. And it's one of the movies I had to pick from overrated from the movies that I had watched. I can see with the recent pandemic how this movie kind of, have a bigger following nowadays because of that whole pandemic feel for it. And not a bad movie. I didn't really care for it as much as everybody else. So, I had to select The Crazies for my most overrated pick for 1973. And finally, my selection for the most underrated goes to Messiah of Evil. What first drew me to this movie was the poster. It intrigued me and it made me want to watch the movie. It's about a young woman who goes to look for her estranged father, and her search takes her to a town in California that's ruled by a cult of the Walking Dead. I adore the atmosphere that this movie creates. The town appears quiet, yet you feel like you're being watched and something is off. And the zombies in this film are not your typical Romero-esque zombies. They're much more coherent and can even strategize when attacking. And these zombies are also a lot harder to kill than Romero zombies. Much more like the zombies in the greatest movie of all time, Return of the Living Dead. If you're looking for a different type of zombie movie, then check this one out, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It's one of those movies that if you haven't seen, I really don't want to give too much away, but it's a zombie movie that's just a little bit different from other zombie movies out there, and I think the acting is great. The main actress is phenomenal, and I think you'll really enjoy the atmospheres are really sold me for this movie, so I had to select it for my most underrated selection for 1973. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all my selections. Here's a quick recap. Most amazing, of course, I had to go with The Exorcist. So bad it's good, a movie you really have to check out. I can't tell you really why it's so good, but I had a lot of fun watching it. It's WTF movie all the way, every day, any day, The Baby. Best Gore, Vincent Price in Theater of Blood. Most unique, a great horror anthology movie, Vault of Horror. Most overrated, I'm sorry, I had to go with George Romero's The Crazies. And I just wrapped it up with my most underrated selection, Messiah of Evil. Thanks again for watching this video. Now, please go to Carlin's channel, link in the description. Watch his video with the same name. And then go to the community tab on his channel and vote on who you thought had the better picks. And as I stated earlier, please let me know what your selections would be in the comments down below. That's one of my favorite parts of doing this series, is seeing what other people would have picked. I get to learn about new movies I should check out. And again, please do me that favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos, and hit that notification bell as well on both of our channels. We both would really appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Thank you. So let's wrap things up. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and remember, with great kills, there must also come great nails.